Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for this trauma-informed company training. My name is Sarah, and I'll be introducing the goals of the training and why it is beneficial for organizations and their people managers. This training has been developed by the Global Business Coalition Against Human Trafficking, otherwise known as GBCAT. We've done this in partnership with Futures Without Violence, and together intend to help businesses build the capacity of their people managers who may be supporting employees who are survivors of human trafficking. This training will focus on how people managers can create a supportive work environment through applying a trauma-informed lens. No prior knowledge about human trafficking or understanding of trauma is needed to successfully engage in this content. The knowledge and strategies shared in this training are intended not only to benefit survivors of human trafficking, but also individuals who have experienced other forms of trauma, creating a supportive, person-centered environment in which all employees can thrive. As a note, throughout this training, we will use the term survivor and victim interchangeably. Individuals who experience trauma may refer to themselves as either or not at all. We want to emphasize that human trafficking does not define a person, but is something that a person has experienced. This training is divided into 3 core modules, which may be completed separately or as a whole unit. In this introduction, I will start with a brief overview of human trafficking, why businesses should support survivors, and the role of people managers in supporting survivor recovery and empowerment. The following modules will then cover the what, the why, and the how of trauma-informed workplaces. Module 1 will provide an introduction to trauma and trauma-informed workplaces, and how to recognize and respond to potential signs of trauma in the workplace. Module 2 will explore the benefits of a trauma-informed workplace for survivors of human trafficking. And finally, Module 3 will offer practical tips for people managers on how to implement trauma-informed principles in their day-to-day supervision. After completing the training, people managers will be better able to understand trauma related to human trafficking and how trauma may manifest itself at work. They'll be able to describe the principles and benefits of a trauma-informed workplace and to apply practical tools and resources to support individuals in the workplace who have experienced trauma. All right, let's get started. First, I'll define human trafficking. Human trafficking is the process of trapping people through the use of violence, deception, or coercion, and exploiting them for financial or personal gain. Human trafficking can happen in any country and in communities big and small. While sex trafficking is often the form of trafficking most people are familiar with, there are many ways in which a person can be trafficked and exploited, including labor and domestic servitude, being forced to beg, forced marriage, coerced crime, or even organ removal. Human trafficking may involve transportation across borders, but this is not necessary to be considered trafficking. Traffickers, like those who perpetrate domestic and sexual violence, use physical and sexual violence, psychological abuse, economic abuse, and language barriers to isolate and control their victims. In some cases, traffickers withhold an individual's passport or other legal documents to keep them from seeking help or from leaving. For many victims, law enforcement may be perceived to present more risk, such as incarceration, separation from children, or deportation. Pervasive myths about human trafficking and a lack of safe and effective interventions has significantly hindered efforts to identify and support the safety of individuals who are experiencing trafficking. You may be surprised to learn that people who are exploited and trafficked can be of any gender, race, age, nationality, or level of education. However, there are some individuals who are more vulnerable to trafficking due to social or economic marginalization. Human traffickers target those with past experiences of psychological trauma, histories of family violence or child sex abuse, financial insecurity, lack of economic opportunity, political instability, drug dependency, homelessness, and social isolation. Because of the high incidence of these factors among refugees, LGBTQI and gender non-conforming individuals, women, children, and racial and ethnic minorities, these populations can be particularly at higher risk of exploitation. Traffickers take advantage of the insecurity of these individuals through force, fraud, and coercion, often luring victims with promises of work, shelter, food, and love. A 2015 study conducted by the Polaris Project, a United States-based victim services agency, reports that many victims of trafficking turn to traffickers due to sustained unemployment, unpaid debt, and desperation to provide for themselves and their children. Those who are trafficked often face a number of barriers to employment and economic opportunity as a direct result of their exploitation. Some of these obstacles due to a lack of awareness and understanding of human trafficking and the long-term needs of survivors. However, there are actions that businesses can take to change that. At this point, you may be asking yourself why businesses should engage with this issue, which may not have a direct connection to the work of the organization. The first reason is to support social impact in the communities that your company operates in and sources from. A lack of economic opportunity and poverty are common vulnerabilities that traffickers exploit. Safe and sustainable employment is one of the most empowering means to financial security and poverty reduction for disadvantaged populations. Providing employment opportunities helps to prevent the re-exploitation of survivors. Another reason is to bolster your corporate citizenship commitments by taking action. Promoting social equality and justice are often stated goals of a business's corporate citizenship efforts. Acting on that commitment by creating opportunity for survivors within your own operations demonstrates that this is truly a core value. It not only helps to create safety and stability for survivors and their families, it creates ripple effects as survivors are able to build and invest in their communities. A third reason includes cultivating a talented and high-performing workforce. Committing to creating environments that promote safety, diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice for all employees allows corporations to access untapped talent from individuals who have often been pushed out of employment opportunities due to obstacles stemming from histories of trauma. Individuals who have experienced violence and are coping with the impacts of trauma are often seen as being less capable, which is far from the truth. Survivors of human trafficking are incredibly strong and resourceful, and most of all, are able to be resilient and enhance any organization. Cultivating a trauma-responsive environment will allow those who are hindered by bias, systemic barriers, and the impacts of trauma and violence to thrive in the workplace. Finally, having a trauma-responsive work environment helps to create a more stable and supportive workplace, thus decreasing turnover, increasing motivation and performance, and fostering a healthier culture in which all employees are able to thrive. Survivors face a range of practical, behavioral, and emotional obstacles to accessing employment and re-entering the workplace. Obstacles tend to fall into three categories. First, there are practical obstacles that may be related to the vulnerability that was exploited by a trafficker. Lack of direct workplace experience and skills, limited education and training, and economic insecurity are factors that often prevent survivors from accessing employment opportunities. Responsive workplaces work to mitigate these obstacles by investing in professional development and providing supports to ensure employees have the resources to be able to be financially stable. Second, even after having secured safe and stable employment, survivors can still experience a number of behavioral impacts that can threaten their ability to maintain that job. For instance, some survivors may be struggling with substance abuse, either due to forced drug or alcohol use by their trafficker or as a maladaptive coping mechanism. Third, the emotional impacts of trauma may result in diminished sense of self-efficacy and confidence, which can negatively impact performance. Survivors may also find that the structures of a workplace may be reminiscent of the control that they face by a trafficker, leading to re-traumatization and further harming their mental health. Across all of these obstacles, businesses can play a central role in supporting survivors' healing by promoting survivor agency, voice, and choice, and creating supportive and trusting relationships to break down the isolation that they may feel and fostering a greater sense of belonging. Finally, what does this mean for you as a people manager? While a business's policies and practices can create a solid foundation on which to support survivors of human trafficking, it is the people managers who will have a profound impact on their day-to-day experience. People managers are often an employee's main point of contact and have significant influence over an employee's work. They set the tone for their teams and can foster an atmosphere of safety, trust, and support. They can demonstrate their belief in those they supervise through meaningful collaboration and empowerment, and are able to foster and support growth. Due to their relationship with those that they supervise, people managers are well positioned to recognize potential signs of trauma and respond in a supportive way, enabling those who have experiences of violence to get the support they need, rather than causing more harm or pushing them out of the workplace. By understanding the impacts of trauma and utilizing a trauma-informed lens, people managers can more effectively support those that they supervise, strengthen their teams, and promote employee well-being throughout the workplace as a whole. Thank you for taking the time to take this trauma-informed company training. We look forward to continuing the journey with you through the following 3 modules.